Okay, so let's try and unpack this a little bit, starting with, what happened right after the earthquake. The article points out it struck on a Friday, and the thing that really stood out to me was this emphasis on that absolutely critical 72-hour window for rescue.
Yeah.
We're talking about those first 3 days
Yeah.
where the chances of finding people alive under the rubble are at their highest.
That's right. That's precisely right.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence in these situations. And what's really insightful for you to consider is the stark contrast that the article draws with the U.S. response to the earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria just 2 years ago.
Right.
In that case, a disaster assistance response team, DART, essentially a specialized U.S. rapid deployment unit for these kinds of scenarios, was on the ground within a day,
Yeah.
quickly followed by search and rescue teams. And I mean, historically, we've seen, a very swift mobilization.
Yeah, and in this case, according to the Washington Post, by Monday,
Right.
a full 3 days after this devastating earthquake,
Yeah.
there were no U.S. teams on the ground in Myanmar.
Wow.
And here's where it gets really interesting and frankly quite concerning.
Okay.
The article mentions that American officials whose job it was to handle disaster response actually received their termination letters from Washington just hours after the earthquake hit.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the
Oh.
timing of that is just staggering.
Yeah.
It suggests to me a really severe lack of preparedness and potentially a callous disregard for immediate crisis response capabilities.
Yeah, it really highlights a sense of disarray, doesn't it? And it seems to even go deeper. The article points out that many of the USA's personnel who would normally be forming the core of a response team, people with crucial expertise in areas like security and sanitation, which are absolutely vital in those really chaotic early hours after a disaster like this,
Right.
were already on indefinite leave. So even if there had been an immediate desire to deploy the human infrastructure to make that happen, seems to have been significantly weakened.
And it gets worse. They mentioned that the U.S. actually has planes and helicopters stationed in nearby Thailand,
Wow.
assets that have been used in the past quite effectively for delivering aid in this region.
Right.
But this time, they reportedly never even left the ground. So it paints this picture of, a capability that exists in theory, but for some reason wasn't activated when it was desperately needed.
This leads us directly to the central argument that the article puts forward, and it's a really significant one for you to understand,
Okay.
is that the Trump administration's sweeping cuts to USAID are the primary reason behind this seemingly paralyzed U.S. response. And the article quotes numerous current and former USAID employees, as well as State Department officials, leaders of international aid agencies, who are all pointing to this as the key factor.
Yeah.
So the core insight here for you to really grasp is that this wasn't just about fewer people.
Yeah.
It was a systemic dismantling of the very infrastructure that is designed to get aid where it's needed most.
Right. And the piece details how many U.S. programs that historically would have been absolutely crucial in providing immediate aid, things like fuel for ambulances, those essential medical kits,
Yep.
have reportedly been shuttered weeks ago. So it's not just about a lack of personnel. It's about the dismantling of the systems that are in place to deliver that aid on the ground.
Yeah, and the quote from former U.S. Ambassador to Myanmar, Derek Mitchell, really sums up this dramatic change for you. We used to be the first or one of the first to respond. Now we're simply not present.